Hello everybody, how's it going? My name is Tyler Whitmore and I post videos on here about movies every single Tuesday and Friday, so if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. But in today's video, we're going to be talking about my top 10 movies of all time. Now, this isn't going to be my top 10 favorites. This is going to be my top 10 highest rated movies of all time. There's a little difference in there for me. Most of the time, my favorites and highest rated line up, but there's some certain movies that I rate super high just because I super appreciate the technical craft that went into it, or there's something about it that I just really love. And on the same front, I have some favorite movies that I don't really objectively think are good movies. I think some of them are quite bad, but something about them, whether it was an emotional connection I had when I was younger or just a connection I have now, it got me through a bad time, whatever it is. Some movies I just love more than I objectively would rate them high. So with that disclaimer aside, let's get into my top 10 movies of all time. Actually, one more disclaimer here before I get into my top 10 movies of all time in terms of my highest rated. I've only been rating movies, like assigning official scores to them, since December of 2021, so about a year and a half now. I have about 680 films rated and reviewed. They're all on my Letterboxd, which you can find in the description. But that being said, this is my top 10 out of 680. I've seen plenty more films than that. But for me personally, I just decided I'm not going to rate movies unless I freshly watched them. So since December 2021 and on, I've been rating every movie. But movies I saw before then, I haven't assigned a rating to. I have in my watch list to go ahead and rewatch them and get them scored. So this top 10 is going to vary a ton as the years go by. But for right now, these are just my top 10 out of the 680 films I've watched and reviewed since December 2021. Again, I pump faked you once again. This isn't my top 10 ranking yet. This is just one honorable mention I want to give because Inside by Bo Burnham, I truly give a 10 out of 10. I think this is a flawless piece of work. However, it's more a comedy special / one-man show. So I didn't really feel like it was proper to put in my top 10 movies of all time. But I just want to say this comedy special that he gave during the pandemic was so raw, emotional, real. It just hit way too close to home. And truly the fact that he sang in this, acted, wrote it, produced it, directed it, published it, everything was just him. This was a one-man stunt. Immaculate. One of the most impressive things I've ever seen accomplished in the visual media realm by just one single person. Bo Burnham's Inside, not only is it funny, not only does it have some great music, but this is just such a visual spectacle that is just mind-boggling that someone was able to do this alone during the pandemic. So my honorable mention, 10 out of 10 for me, Bo Burnham's Inside. Coming in at number 10 is Goodwill Hunting. This movie was released the year I was born, and I absolutely adored it when I first saw it, probably 10, 15 years ago at this point, and I've rewatched it regularly since. This is kind of the first pairing between Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, which now they've obviously done several movies together. Now they have a production studio together, Artist Equity, and they just released Air. But Goodwill Hunting, something about it, man. There's the dialogue in this movie is just so good between Matt Damon and Robin Williams specifically. I also love Stellan Skarsgård's character, and I feel like you really see his character go through quite an arc through this movie as well. Ben Affleck just being the ultimate homie, just pushing Matt Damon to get out and achieve more in his life because he knows he's capable of it. From the musical score to Robin Williams' heart-wrenching performance to just the dialogue throughout this entire movie, all the way up until that final improvised line from Robin Williams saying he stole my line when he's going to see about a girl. Goodwill Hunting to me is just such a great movie. Number 9 for me is Old Boy, the one by Park Chan-wook, the original one, not the remake, the American remake with Josh Brolin and Elizabeth Olsen. But this is such a crazy movie. I watched it for the first time when I was way too young, and I'd never seen it since until about 2 or 3 months ago, and I finally gave it a rewatch. And it holds up and more. It's just as gnarly as I remembered. The story and the plot definitely went over my head when I was a kid, but now as an adult, it's absolutely crazy. It's twisted. It's sick. It's got some insane fight choreography. The hallway scene is obviously iconic. But from the second this movie hits go, you really never stop. This movie is nonstop thrilling. You're just trying to figure out what the heck's going on. Why was he in prison this entire time? He finally gets his way out, wreaks havoc on his captors, and then finds out the ultimate conspiracy that was going on. And yeah, that'll stick with you. Number 8, I have About Time, and actually I have Seth from Seth's Film Reviews to thank for this because I've always called this like my favorite movie ever, but I don't objectively think it's like the greatest movie I've ever seen. However, I finally moved it up into the 10 out of 10 ranking simply because like at the end of the day, I don't want to just be reviewing movies based on, I think this movie is technically the best. I want to be reviewing it based on that, as well as just how much it impacts me, how much I enjoy it, how much I love the movie. And About Time is just a movie I love so much. I rewatch it annually, and I just think it's such a great emotional story with such a gripping musical score, great performances throughout the entire cast, and just very heartwarming, and leaves you just with a different perspective after you watch the movie. And just the fact that it means so much to me, it was crazy that I wasn't giving it the full 10 out of 10 marks. This movie has such an emotional impact on me. Therefore, it's a 10 out of 10 for me. It's not ranked number 1 for me, but it got its official score of 10 out of 10. Side note, when it comes to About Time, I've received, not even exaggerating, probably 150 to 200 DMs from people saying like, thank you so much for being such a hype man for this movie. I finally watched it and I loved it. I do think there is some like elements that people don't like in terms of like a problematic relationship because he can go back in time. But I kind of like the way that they handle it in terms of he's the narrator. So he's kind of like an untrustworthy narrator in terms of he thinks he is God at this point. Like you're hearing the story through his perspective. So he in his own head doesn't think anything's wrong with the fact that he's going back in time, altering people's lives until the end of the movie he finally realizes, you know, I probably shouldn't be doing this. Like I just want to be enjoying life as it is and live life to the fullest each and every day as if I had the chance to go back in time. So I get it. There's some issues here with the plot, but I think I'm going to do a whole video breakdown of like why this plot of About Time might be problematic and why the way the movie addresses it kind of works. At number 7, I have 12 Angry Men. Now, there's 2 movies on this list that I'm going to talk about in terms of what I think are the greatest screenplays of all time. And so far from what I've seen, this is the second greatest screenplay I've ever seen, 12 Angry Men. This movie is just a classic. It's withstood the test of time. The dialogue is incredible. Every single actor in that courtroom, in the deliberation room, deliberating what the ultimate fate of the person on trial is going to be, nails their role. Just seeing an unraveling of this jury going from one side to the other with one man standing up and getting them all to change their perspectives and change their mind. This movie is in one location for like 99% of it. They're just in that deliberation room and it's all based on dialogue. You get very little recreation or action scenes. It's really just people talking and coming to a common understanding. And the fact that they can make that so compelling and so engaging is something that I want to re-engage with and rewatch. 12 Angry Men. It's iconic and a classic masterpiece for a reason. Now at 6, I have La La Land, and this is similar to About Time, but a little different in the fact that About Time I elevated to a 10 out of 10 because it just means so much to me, whereas La La Land means so much to me and I love this movie and I rewatch it all the time. However, the first time I ever saw it, it was a 9.9 out of 10 for me. Then I just kept rewatching it. I'm like, who am I kidding? This is a 10 out of 10. Why am I giving it a 0.1 off? But this movie, the soundtrack is my favorite soundtrack of all time. I've listened to it just a sickening amount, and I still will never get sick of Justin Hurwitz's score and Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling's performances in this movie. It's emotional. It makes me tear up every single time at the ending. The use of costumes, the color palette of this movie is immaculate. I just can't sit here and say enough good things about La La Land, so I'm not going to keep ranting on about it. But this is one of my most rewatchable movies. I watch it almost every time on a plane because like on a plane, I'm going to be listening to the La La Land soundtrack probably anyways. So might as well watch the movie while I'm doing it. There you see a poster in my background of La La Land. This movie's incredible. I can't say enough good things about it. At number 5, I have The Social Network. I mentioned just a second ago, 12 Angry Men, that there's 2 movies on here that I consider the greatest screenplays of all time. Number 1 greatest screenplay of all time is The Social Network for me. This was written by Aaron Sorkin, and this has the very, very, very rare distinction in film of a screenplay that was written, and there was absolutely nothing improvised, nothing in terms of the dialogue. There was nothing improvised. There was no scenes that were added after the script was written, and there's nothing cut out of the movie. That means exactly how this movie was written. It was translated to the screen. There was nothing added, nothing taken away. And if you can do that, you are a unicorn in the screenplay writing business. This screenplay is so tight, turns the creation of a company into a thriller that feels psychological at times, bouncing between courtrooms, bouncing between lawsuits, bouncing between different people coming into his life and trying to manipulate him. The Social Network is such a masterpiece of a movie. It's easily Fincher's best in my opinion. And I really just don't understand how anyone would love this movie. At number 4, I have a movie that doesn't really need much introduction or any introduction at all for that matter. And that's The Shawshank Redemption. Now, Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman's performance in this movie is great, but every single character from the warden, from the main characters you see often throughout the movie to people you just see for one single scene, they're all incredibly captivating. This movie it's the number 1 on IMDb for a reason. You watch this movie for the first time and you're just in awe and amazed at how incredible this story is, how incredible this movie is made, how all the acting performances are so engaging. And this is one of those movies I've rewatched many, many times. I think the first time I saw this was probably when it was playing on like cable TV. You know, you have to watch it with the commercials way back when I was younger. And since then, I've rewatched this probably once or twice every couple of years. It's just so good, and I can't say enough things about it. And it's just one of those things that I don't really have to be sitting here talking about. It's the number 1 rated movie on IMDb. Everyone's seen this movie. Most people love it. So what am I doing sitting here? Wasting your time talking about it and praising it more. However, should have won Best Picture over Forrest Gump. Absolutely ridiculous. At number 3 is a movie that means a ton to me, and that's Boyhood. I feel like I connect with this movie just so much, and I showed it to my family, and they all loved it as well. And when I first saw it, I was in love with it, and I've rewatched it several times since, and it just hits so close to home for me. And Richard Linklater, I've always said, is the king of coming-of-age stories, and this might be his coup de grace. And so he has that one with Paul Mescal coming out, where he's filming over the next 35 years or something. Richard Linklater's a madman, but when it comes to coming-of-age stories, no one does it better in the business than him, and Boyhood is his epic. Everyone's like, oh, it's filmed over 12 years. Yeah, it's because people harp on all the time because it is such an achievement in film. And you really see these actors grow over time. Patricia Arquette, Ethan Hawke, Eller Coltrane is who plays the kid. We don't really see him much after that. Richard Linklater's daughter plays his sister, Lorelai Linklater. And this movie, you literally see this family grow, divide, go through struggles, come together throughout 12 years of their life, going from a kid growing up in a broken home to finally going off to college and setting sight on his own life. Boyhood just hits me in all the right ways. It's one of the movies that I can definitely understand showing to people that might find it boring and don't connect with it as much. But for me, something about this movie just has a grip on me and I gravitate towards it. And I just think it's a 10 out of 10 perfect movie. My number 2 highest rated movie of all time is the Oscar winning performance by Anthony Hopkins in The Father. Now this movie is disappointing me in retrospect because Florian Zeller, this was his debut and The Father was so incredible. And then he followed it up with The Son, which is one of the most distasteful and awful movies I've ever seen in my life from last year. So Florian Zeller, not sure how he is as a director as a whole, but Olivia Colman, Anthony Hopkins, 2 of the greatest actor and actresses of all time, easily in the conversation for greatest of all time. And both of them are on their A game here in this movie. This movie is what I consider another round, with Mads Mikkelsen to be the best depiction of on-screen alcoholism I've ever seen and what it would be like. Whereas The Father, I feel like has to be the best on-screen display we've ever seen of anyone trying to capture what dementia must be like. And it literally is a psychological thriller of being inside his mind as things are being forgotten, misremembered. He doesn't know where he is, who these people are. And slowly it starts off as a drama. And eventually you realize this is going to be a terrifying movie, not in terms of like a horror, but in terms of just being inside of someone's mind who is effectively losing his mind every minute. Is just so sad and terrifying to be a part of. And the way that Florian Zeller was able to capture in this film was perfect. And it definitely helps that they had some of the best actors and actresses of all time portraying the roles in this movie. But The Father blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. But my number 1 movie of all time is the movie with the poster right to my right in the background, as that's There Will Be Blood. And it's a meme on TikTok and social media, but Daniel Day-Lewis's performance in this movie simply is the greatest acting performance I've ever seen in my life. Paul Thomas Anderson absolutely delivers in every way with the screenwriting of this movie and the direction. Paul Dano needs to be given an Oscar already because he's always such a great supporting actor, and this movie might be his very best supporting role. He's just such an incredible talent, and him and Daniel Day-Lewis going head to head in this movie is just a sight to see and just something to behold. And when you watch it, you immediately know you're seeing greatness. Now, this is a movie, I'm not going to lie, the first time I saw it, I was recommended to watch it from one of my best friends. Watched it when I was probably like 15. Didn't love it. I don't even think I got past the opening scene where he was trapped down in the oil well trying to get out. I think I quit there and I was like, this is boring. It's just not my speed. Finally, like 2 years ago, I finally gave it another chance and watched it from beginning to end. And immediately I was like, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen. The acting performances are the greatest I've ever seen. The cinematography is off the charts. And the writing and the direction of Paul Thomas Anderson, who's easily one of my favorite directors, is just brilliant. And this is the number 1 movie of all time for me. I don't really know if it'll be topped because I just think it is so perfect in terms of how it was portrayed, but also in terms of like, I just love it so much. So it has 2 things going for it. I don't know if this is going to be topped. I'm sure it will. I have like thousands of movies I still need to see, including a lot of the classics and a lot of the other very highly rated movies. But for right now, Paul Thomas Anderson's There Will Be Blood with Daniel Day-Lewis is the single best movie I have ever seen in my life. And it is a 10 out of 10 and my number 1 out of 680. Thank you all so much for watching my latest YouTube video. This was the countdown of my top 10 movies of all time, plus an honorable mention there of Inside by Bo Burnham. If you want to see my top 10 favorite movies of all time, because that list is pretty different than this list, let me know in the comments down below and I'll make that video next or in the next week or so. But as I said, every Tuesday and Friday, I'm posting new videos on YouTube about movies and anything related to movies, whether it's reviews, rankings, etc. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. And on social media, including Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, I'm posting every single day, often multiple times a day. So if you want movie content and coverage from me every single day, go to all those social media links that are all in the description down below. I thank you all for watching, and I will see you on Friday with the next video.